What's up, guys? This is Neil. We've got two questions for you today. What is biomass balance and will it save us? Now, the first question is pretty easy to answer. It's really a system that applies to vertically integrated supply chains where you are replacing a portion of the traditional fossil-based feedstock like petroleum or natural gas derived naphtha, things like that. You're replacing a portion of that with an annually renewable feedstock like a vegetable oil, and then the products which ultimately come out of the end of that supply chain, the products you're interested in, you're allocating that bio feedstock that went in at the beginning, you're allocating that bio feedstock credit, if you like, to that final product, right? So that doesn't mean that the actual carbon atoms that are now all mixed in with the petroleum-based carbon atoms, it doesn't mean that those actual carbon atoms are present in that biomass balance product. It just means that if you put 100,000 tons of a bio-based carbon in, you're going to allocate 100,000 tons worth of bio credit to those end products. And so that's what's meant by biomass balance. The mass is balanced going in and out, but the actual carbon atoms are not traced and segregated throughout the system. So similar concepts have been used, biomass balance, and things like RSPO with palm oil, etc. So this is being applied to bio-based materials going into traditional existing refining assets. So a number of big companies, BASF is one of them, has done a pretty nice job, and I'm going to show you this slide here. This is their conceptual slide that kind of explains the system as it applies going into and out of their production Verbund. The next slide gives you a little bit more detail on that, talks about renewable feedstocks like biomethane and bionaphtha, and how that mass balance, that allocation of the carbon, the bio-based carbon to the end product is certified, in this case by, I believe it's TÜV, or one of the independent certification industries. A number of big companies have gotten into this concept in a commercial way in our surfactant supply chain. So the next slide shows you how Henkel talks about the biomass balance approach, and you'll notice it's almost a carbon copy of how BASF talks about it. And in fact, Henkel and BASF have struck a partnership where BASF biomass balance, surfactant, and other ingredients are going into the Henkel detergents, and this enables Henkel to talk about the carbon footprint improvement as a result of the replacement of that fossil carbon going now into their detergents. And here you'll see how on the All brand they talk about the bio-based nature of the detergent. As I said, a number of other big companies in our surfactant value chain have gotten into this area, and so the next slide talks about how in early 2023, Henkel again and Shell this time put together an agreement based on renewable-based ingredients, as it talks about here, about 200,000 tons worth of feedstocks going ultimately into Henkel laundry detergents in North America, coming from Shell. And as Shell explained at my conference in 2022 in May, the Jersey World Surfactant Conference in May of 22, this is done by a biomass balance approach, putting renewable inputs into the existing Shell refining and petrochemical infrastructure to get these biomass balance products. So there you are, this coming to fruition very soon after that world first announcement, by the way, at my surfactant conference. Little plug there for my own event. And then INEOS, of course, a big producer of ethylene oxide, has what they call their bio-attributed ethylene oxide, which substitutes, as they say in this next slide here, substitutes fossil feedstock with renewable biomass, enabling them to sell bio-attributed biomass balance EO to folks that can ethoxylate and then take those renewable carbon credits into their end products and into the end consumer products. And finally, you'll see how CEPSA has made a huge deal, actually very aggressive marketing about their next lab, which they talk about as the world's first sustainable linear alkyl benzene. It's biomass balanced carbon going into this LAB, enabling you with the exact same infrastructure then to claim those carbon renewable credits in your LAB, your LAS, your detergent, your floor cleaner, whatever it happens to be that the LAS, linear alkyl benzene sulfonic acid, ends up in. So why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because a lot of the large consumer products companies, the ones we've already mentioned, Henkel and Unilever, P&G, Cow, L'Oreal, etc., have made pretty aggressive sustainability goals and targets for the year 2030. A lot of those involve using bio-renewable ingredients in the bottle. The biggest thing in the bottle, almost inevitably after water, is of course the surfactant. So that's how you're going to move the needle. And this is honestly a very cost-effective and convenient way to replace petrochemical fossil carbon with renewable carbon at the beginning of the supply chain, whether or not that actual carbon atom ends up in the final product. Now, will it save us? Save us from what? Climate catastrophe, AI turning us into paper clips, the inevitable disappointment of the England fans at the World Cup or the Euros? I'm not sure. It is a genuine replacement. However, you will find that some companies and some individuals will take a somewhat dismissive, sneering approach towards biomass balance, basically saying, yeah, it's kind of cheating. What we want to have, because we want to tell that story, we want to have those bio-based carbons, those actual carbons from a plant or a tree or some process which is very mild, right, and not a lot of harsh chemistry, and from a renewable source. We want those actual carbons in our finished product, and biomass balance just doesn't cut it, and they'll dismiss it. I can't name names, but I've heard that loud and clear from certain companies. So it's a question of how you want to market the product, what story you want to tell, but at the end of the day, at least as far as I can see, you are genuinely replacing those fossil carbons with something else. And so that's a real substitution. If I'm missing something in that regard, please someone correct me. But that is it for this week, guys. I hope you found this useful and interesting. Again, like, subscribe, give me some suggestions about what you want to hear about, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. Thanks for listening.